Okay, so I had a request to show you guys how to do our gingerbread house, our family gingerbread house, okay? So this is something that we used to do with our family. Well, not used to, we've always done this for as long as I can remember. My mom would make this gingerbread house every Christmas. It is a pattern, I don't know where it came from, I should probably ask her, but it is a pattern that, that we use to just make our own gingerbread. It makes a nice big house with stained glass windows. I'm gonna show you how. The reason this has come up is because of our personal Macomber family tradition that we do with this gingerbread house that Mark and I have been doing now for, I don't know, 12 years maybe longer. So basically, you know, if you ever have made a gingerbread house, you know by the time Christmas rolls around, the candy has all been eaten, you're not eating that gingerbread house, it's hard as a rock by that point, and so it usually just goes in the trash. So one year, my husband took the boys and my daughter out in the backyard, and they, not me, I wasn't involved in this part, but they shot the gingerbread house with a slingshot, okay? And that was maybe a year or two that they did that. And then they graduated to going out in some open space and using a BB gun. And from there, it has just progressed over the years until now, the day after Christmas, we go out in the desert to an area where there's a lot of people that actually go out and, you know, do target shooting and all kinds of stuff. It's just out in the desert, okay? It's not a set aside place for shooting, but there's a lot of people out there shooting. Anyway, we go out there and we go out with friends too, and now they make their gingerbread houses, and that's what we start the day with, is shooting the gingerbread house. That's our target. So it progresses. My husband lays out, he loves shooting and things. He's never gone hunting, nothing with animals, but he loves actually target shooting. So we have clay pigeons out there and shotguns, so eventually we go to that, but that's after the gingerbread house has been demolished. And if you're friends of ours, you may have seen me post about this before. I usually get it on video. I'm sure I will get it on video again this year, but you can go out and you can buy the ready-made gingerbread houses. You can make the graham cracker gingerbread houses. You can go to Bed Bath & Beyond and buy the kits. It doesn't matter, you know, gingerbread houses are just a fun target. But if you would like to make your own, this one is a beautiful one. It's nice and big. The stained glass windows are amazing and they're not hard to do. So I'm going to walk you through exactly how we do this. I'm going to post the recipe. I will put it probably in the comments under this video. My plan is to actually get this up on YouTube, so I'll put the pattern in there too, so you can actually print it, and then you'll be able to make this. But there are some tips and tricks that I have learned over the years to actually make this successful. And we have learned the hard way that when we don't do these things, sometimes our gingerbread house doesn't work very well. And it's a lot of trouble to go to not have it work very well. So I want to make sure you're successful, okay? So first of all, the recipe, this is the recipe. You can see this is in my mother's handwriting. I tore it out of a little makeshift cookbook that I had when I went away to college, okay? So I love this recipe, but it's fairly simple. The recipe itself is fairly simple. There's a recipe for the actual gingerbread on here. There's a recipe for the glue and a recipe for the royal frosting. And the difference is that the glue is what's gonna hold your house together. It's what you're gonna put the walls up with and the roof on with, and it's gonna solidify hard as a rock. And then the royal frosting is what you're gonna hold your candy on with. It's a little bit different, okay? And when we get to that point, I'll explain more. But let me take you up to the point. I've made the dough, so let me show you. Okay, one more thing. The recipe tells you that you need to refrigerate this dough for 3 hours before using it. I have never, ever done that. If it feels super sticky, like you go to touch the dough and it's really sticking to your finger, just add a little bit more flour, maybe a couple tablespoons at a time, until it doesn't feel so sticky when you touch it. And then you're just gonna roll it out with powdered sugar. You're rolling it out onto parchment, so the bottom part you don't have to worry about. But on the top, as you're rolling it so it doesn't stick to the rolling pin, just use a little bit of powdered sugar both on the dough and on your rolling pin, and it should be fine. But yeah, you do not have to wait 3 hours before you start working with the dough. Another thing is, if you don't happen to have a big mixer like I do, you could just divide the recipe in half, and make it twice to have enough of the dough. Otherwise, you're just gonna have a hard time fitting it in, and you definitely don't wanna hand mix this if you can help it. So that would be the other thing that you would probably want to do. Okay, so I'm going to show you kind of a little trick that I do. Because you're working on a moving surface with the pan and rolling it's just going to move it, I actually stick my pan up against a wall because it gives me something to push against, okay? So I'll just kind of show you how I roll out one piece. I don't spend very much time with it. It does still move with the parchment, so you kind of have to push down on it pretty good as soon as you're rolling it forward. But it does help to have a few jelly roll pans to work with. So I've got one pan cooking in the oven, and I'll be working on the next one while that's going. So I want to get this fairly thin. I mean, not super thin because you don't want it to crack either, but you don't want it super thick either. It is a little bit tricky with the parchment. It does move, but at least with it against the wall, it gives you one less moving piece. Okay, so I'm going to show you the piece with the indentation in it, since it's a little bit different. Okay, and then I just kind of lightly go over it to get it kind of even. There we go. All right, so that's going to fit just right. So what I'm going to do, I need a knife. I'll get a little paring knife. So I just got a paring knife for doing the little indentation. So I'm going to go ahead and hold that and just, you don't really want to tug on it because it'll just pull the dough. So you kind of want to saw up and down to get that cut. And then the rest of it, I'm going to do with the pizza cutter, just because it's really fast that way. All right, so there's that. And then I'll use the pizza cutter to go around it. And you guys, when these come out of the oven, I actually take my pattern and put it back on the hot gingerbread, and I cut off the excess because you'll find that it expands. And I haven't done that every time, but I find that my house comes together much better when I do that. So then you're just gonna, and I'll show you when it comes out so you kind of see what I'm talking about. But pull away all the excess dough, and you can add this dough back to the stuff that you're kind of keeping in the bowl. I might not have gotten that down a little bit. Well, it's pretty good. All right, that looks good. Okay, so this one's ready to go in the oven. And if you have two ovens, this is something that will really help this to go a lot quicker, because while one is cooking, since I'm just done with this, I can go ahead and stick it in that other oven and have that going, and I can just keep swapping these pans out really, really quick and be done with this in like an hour. Okay, so I've got the first batch that just came out of the oven. So this is what I mean by putting it on the back of the pan makes it so much easier, because I can just get down here and grab the edge and put it at the same level as my countertop and just slide it right on. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to show you now. Let me get this other one off. Here we go. All right, set my hot pan down. Okay, so the next thing is to make sure that the pattern still fits, because as you can see, get this down a little closer. Can you tell how much these have puffed up? So as thin as I made them, they still get quite thick in the oven. So let me show you how I kind of remedy that, okay? So I've got my pattern here. This is the one that we had two of, right? So I just set it on top, and you have to be kind of careful because it is very, very hot right now. And actually even more, well, you could try the pizza cutter. Let's see how soft it is. It might not be, because I did go, yeah, it's pretty hard. So I'm gonna use my paring knife. And I'm just gonna saw around the edges with the pattern on top. So I'm just going up and down, because I want this to be the same exact size as the pattern, at least as much as I can, so that the pieces fit together. Now, one thing to know is that you can fix most things with frosting. So, there are going to be gaps no matter what between pieces, corners that don't fit exactly and different things. So, but you have to do this when it comes out of the oven, or it will crack. Right now, it's just warm enough that it's hot enough that it's staying pliable. So I can cut these pieces away. Now my kids love this because they they love grabbing these pieces and eating them. So I hold on to those. I put them in a bowl and they just come and snack on them. They look like biscotti or something. So anyway, you're going to want to do this with all the pieces as they come out of the oven. Just kind of make them match up to your pattern, okay? Okay, so this is what makes this particular gingerbread house so freaking cool, okay? It's got stained glass windows and they are so easy to make. So typically what I grew up doing is using Lifesavers, okay? Sometimes these can be kind of hard to find, and I actually like using Jolly Ranchers better. My friend Sarah started doing that, and I really like using Jolly Ranchers. But the store I was at tonight, the only Jolly Ranchers available, the only thing available was a huge big bag of Jolly Ranchers, and I really didn't want all that candy because we'd probably eat it, and I don't want to eat it. So I went ahead and bought the Lifesaver bags, and 5 would not do it. My husband just handed me 5 Jolly Ranchers. That's all he's got, so that's not going to do it. Okay, so we have Lifesavers. These are really a pain because they're individually wrapped and much smaller than Jolly Ranchers, so it takes a little while to unwrap them, but you know, that's what we have. So here's what you do with them. You're not going to, if you're doing Jolly Ranchers, you want to stack them, you want to put more in there than what it looks like you need because it's going to melt down flat as it goes. The other reason, the other thing you want to watch because of that, that's important, is to make sure that the pan you're using, the jelly roll pan you're using, isn't one that's warped. Because if it is, you're going to have like curves in your dough that's sitting there and it's going to leak underneath, which isn't the end of the world. It just might end up in the bottom of your oven. So, you know, maybe put a pan underneath it. I have never had that issue, but my friend that I taught how to do these has had that issue. So just something to watch out for. But again, it's not the end of the world. It just makes a thinner window if it leaks underneath. And you can cover anything that's melted on the side of your gingerbread house with frosting and candy. So not a big deal. Okay, so with the Lifesavers and with the Jolly Ranchers, it's fun to kind of alternate colors because they're not all gonna mix as they melt. I mean, they will a little bit, but you're gonna get different colors and it will look like stained glass. So it's very, very cool. So just pile them in there. There's really not any rhyme or reason to doing it. You can let the kids do it and be super, you know, make a really cool pattern, or I just piled it in there. And it doesn't matter if they're broken. You can put them on their ends. As you can see I'm doing here, some of them are just sitting on their ends because I want to fill in every little crevice. And they're kind of mounded in the middle because it's all going to melt, okay? So, I'll show you kind of how it looks when it's done. All right. So if you can tell, that's kind of all I do. So I'll show you what it looks like when it comes out of the oven. By the way, this is one of 2 windows that I'm doing. You'll see on the pattern that this particular one, where's the pattern for this one? It's a side, oh, sorry, it's a back. Okay, so the one that's labeled when you get your pattern, it's labeled house back cut 1. I went ahead and just cut a window out in this. It doesn't, just cut a rectangle out in the middle of it and make a window because it's just nice to have more than one window. Otherwise, the only window you will have in your house is the one on the front, okay? So if you want to, make sure on the back, house back, you go ahead and cut out a rectangle for that. You could also do them on the sides. There's the one that says house side cut 2. You could do one on each side. Sometimes we do a little circle window there. I'm not going to do that this time, but you could. Okay, so here is the piece that has the steeple on it. This is what you need to know about this one so that you don't mess it up. So basically you can see here, I already put the Lifesavers on, but the door, I don't know if you can see it here. I'm going to try and get it close enough. You don't want to lift this piece away. You can see I scored it. It's cut all the way around, but I left it in there. And when it comes out, I'm going to cut it again with the knife to make sure that it stays separate from everything else, because once this cools, I'm going to pull the door away and we will basically glue it kind of half open on the house, okay? So leave that piece in, but make sure it's cut out, but it's still left in there. And then once it comes out of the oven, right away when you cut around the edges and everything, re-score it so that it doesn't attach while it's cooking to this, okay? So detach it, I guess, once it comes out. But you can leave it sitting in there until it's completely cool, but cut it. I hope I'm making sense. So you guys, as you can see, once you get rid of that, carve out all the outsides of the pieces that you've been doing, you've got quite a bit of dough left. There's enough there to make some gingerbread men or just some gingerbread cookies, or Honestly, I usually don't get around to doing that. My friend does, but I do not. Usually it just goes in the trash. So anyway, but there is extra dough if you want to do something with it. Now, the pieces that I have finished cooking, these are going to actually sit out. I've got another piece in the oven still, a couple of pieces actually. So these are the ones that don't have the candy on them, the stained glass. So these are just sitting on cooling racks. When they've been sitting out, like I made these in the evening, so it's like probably tomorrow morning, I'll go ahead and peel off the parchment and I'll let them sit for probably another full day at least before I go and glue them together. You could even leave them longer. The idea is if they're nice and stale and hard, they're not going to crumble or break when you go to glue your house together. So if you know, I would say make this about at least 3 or 4 days ahead of when you want to actually be decorating it. I have done it all in one day before, but we've also had some disasters that way. So it's a little bit risky to do it that way. So anyway, I would leave them out on the countertops. You want to get the paper out from underneath it as soon as these are nice and cool. I don't want to mess with them right now because I don't want them to break. So I'll wait till the pieces are completely cool. They've been sitting here for a day, peel the paper off, and then let them sit for another day or two, you know, until we're ready to actually glue the pieces together. One other little tip, you'll see with this pattern, what you're gonna want to do is trace it onto something like contact paper. And that way, you know, you can cut it around the edges and it's gonna be like, after I'm done using these every year, I take a wet washcloth over the top because they, you know, get sticky and stuff. I've had them sitting on dough. So that way they're gonna last you for a really, really long time. So contact paper, you could even laminate it if you wanted to. The one piece that won't fit all the way on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper is this one. So for this one, probably contact paper is going to be your best bet, or you could take it to an office place and have it laminated on like legal size paper. Okay guys, so here's the ones that have the lifesavers in it. So you can see kind of how it comes out. And even though I piled those in, can you see how it's still, you can see how it drops down because you can see the edge already. But when you get the light behind it, it's gonna look so cool. You can see it on this one, okay? So this one, when it came out, I went ahead and I put my pattern back over it and cut around everything again, like I did with the other pieces. And then on the door, I just sawed around where it had already been scored. I sawed it again because it kind of, as it bakes, it kind of attaches back together. You know, it kind of melts into the sides. So you want to detach it so you can get that door out later, okay? So I'm going to let these sit tomorrow. And I'm not going to take the ones that have the candy off of the metal sheet pans because I want to keep it super flat underneath the candy so it doesn't run because it's still very, very soft. So all I did was take these out of the oven, unlike the other pieces that I put onto the cooling racks on top of the paper. I'm not going to touch these until tomorrow when they're completely cool. And then I'll move them over onto the cooling racks with the other pieces and just let everything sit for a full 24 hours at least before I try and glue the house together. Okay guys, so my gingerbread has been sitting out now for about a day and a half and it's gotten pretty hard. So I think today's the day we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna assemble this. So I'm gonna show you kind of how we do that and kind of the tools that I use for setting this up. So we have a great big cutting board. This is how we do this every year. I got this as a wedding gift. Isn't this awesome? It's like this huge big cutting board. But you could use anything. You could use a big piece of cardboard, but you want something sturdy. Especially if you're going to be moving it around at all. Like for us, we take this out to the desert and shoot it the day after Christmas. This year it's going to be a couple days after Christmas, but that's our plan with this. So we want something nice and sturdy because that gingerbread house is going in the back of my husband's truck and we're going to be driving about an hour away to go and shoot it. So I would say put it on something sturdy. You could use the back of a sheet pan if you wanted to, or you know, or the inside of a sheet pan would be fine too. But let me show you kind of what we do. Because we go out in the desert, because I know some of you are going to repeat this, and I've had a lot of people request what we do, because this is just so fun. It's fun to use this for target practice. So I take a cereal box, because that's what I have around. You know, this was a family-sized box of Cheerios, a nice big box, and I open that up at the seams, and I'm going to put that on top of my cutting board. And what I'm going to do after that is basically cover the whole thing with foil, okay? And then I'm gonna wrap the foil all the way around the edges of the cutting board, and then I'm gonna use duct tape to actually, you know, on all 4 edges on the underside, just to make sure nothing slips and slides around and it's really, really stable. And then when we take it out to the desert, it's really easy, since I don't want them shooting it up on my nice cutting board. My husband just slides the cardboard, you know, undoes the tape, slides the whole thing off onto the ground, and the gingerbread house is ready to go. So whether you're gonna move this and take it somewhere or not, it's just a good idea to find something stable to set it up on, so that once you assemble your gingerbread house, you know, maybe you need to move it to a different countertop, or you wanna, you know, put it somewhere else, you have it, you can do that, and you're not taking a chance on it falling off or something. So I'll show you what this looks like once I assemble it. Okay, so here is the finished product. So I overlapped 2, even though I'm using really super wide, like Costco size foil. You can see there's a seam. I can't even see it. Oh, it's at the bottom. Anyway, there's a seam here. I flipped it over. I overlapped 2 pieces and then just used some packing tape to put them together, but the packing tape's on the other side, so it doesn't show up on this side. And then on the other side, you can see how I just wrapped it around on all sides and duct taped it. So it's ready to go for the gingerbread house. Let me show you how the pieces turned out. Okay, so here are my pieces all lined up, ready to go. Okay, so you can see how the candy turned out on this one. Don't worry see how much this sunk down on this, because as the candy melted, this piece ended up a lot thicker. See that? It was a bigger piece and I had it thicker in the middle, but that's okay. That's why you wait a couple of days to let it kind of harden up. Now it's nice and hard. It's not at all mushy in the middle at all. But what you're going to do with this part, you're going to end up frosting the edges of the windows and the edges of the house, and you're going to decorate it with candy. So this part isn't even going to show. It'll be really, really cute. So that's the front of the house. I moved the door over to this one just because there's a little more space. So I, removed the door out. Remember, when you're cooking this, after it comes out of the oven, you have to cut around this again because it's going to stick together otherwise. But once you cut around it, you can just let it cool and then pop that part out. And so that's your door. And when you actually make the house, you'll basically, put it like this. So it's open. You'll see. Anyway, so that's the back of the house. And then here's the 2 sides. And if you wanted to, like I said, you could cut, we've in the past done little circle windows in these, and that's kind of fun to do. And you can let even more light into your house. And that's really fun. So anyway, and this is the roof. Okay, so this piece right here is basically the piece that's going to go here. It'll go behind that, and then this little cutout is what allows this to pop up. Okay, so that's why you did that piece that way. So I'm going to make the frosting, the glue frosting that's going to hold all this together, and then I'll show you how to assemble. Okay, so a little note about your glue frosting. Remember, there's 2 types of frosting in this gingerbread house. There's your glue that you're going to glue your gingerbread house together with, and then there's your royal frosting that is going to be what you put your candy on with. This frosting, the glue frosting, this is not something you want to take a taste of. It doesn't taste good. It's 3 ingredients. It's powdered sugar, egg whites, and vinegar. Okay, so it's going to turn nice and hard for you. So, oh, and just a little note, if you don't want to have to separate out egg whites, you can buy the carton of egg whites. It calls for 1.5 egg whites, which I don't know how you separate a half an egg white normally anyway. So it's about 2 tablespoons of liquid egg white to equal 1 egg. So it would be 3 tablespoons of egg whites for this recipe. If you feel like this frosting, and I'll show you, this is my frosting right here. And when I finish, I might have added a little bit too much vinegar because it was kind of, it wasn't quite as thick as I wanted it. What you want, you don't want it to be runny or it's not gonna hold up your house, but if it's so thick, you're not gonna be able to squeeze it out of the frosting, the pastry bag. So if you can tell from this, it doesn't drip off of the whisk, but it's not it's still pliable, I guess, if that's how you want to describe it. But I let it run for a few minutes being whisked, and you could use if you don't have a KitchenAid, you could use just an electric, mixer, the hand mixer to do this too. So the pastry bag, I got this at Walmart. You can get these pretty much anywhere. And the tip, you want it to be not too skinny because it's going to be really hard to squeeze out the frosting if you do. So if you can tell, I don't know if you can see, that's kind of the size tip. Mine's all bent up. I think it might have gone down the disposal at one point. But it doesn't matter because it's not being used to like pretty decorative things. It's just to get it out there how you want it. You do not want to use a ton of frosting on your joints of your house. If you do, it's going to take a long time to dry and you're more likely to have it collapse when you go to put your roof on, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do the base of the house, everything but the roof, the 4 walls, and put that together. And then I'm going to let it sit probably till tomorrow before I put the roof on, so it's nice and hard before I add the extra weight of the roof on top of it. My recipe, my mom had written in that you could put cardboard underneath the roof. I haven't really done that. I just wait overnight so it's nice and hard. And then I don't have to worry about that. So I'll show you how I put this together. If you can see, I'll point this down here. Okay, so I've laid out my pieces and I put the part that I want on the inside. So this is the part that baked side down on here. You probably can't tell in there, but it's not as pretty as this side. So this is the side I want, the part that wasn't laying on the sheet pan. That's gonna be on the outside. So I lay my pieces out before I start frosting, so I kind of know where it's going on my cutting board. And you have to decide if you want these pieces to be on the inside of the outside pieces or if you want them to be on the outside, if that makes sense. So I'm putting mine on the inside, the sides are, and then the back and the front will stick on that side. So it'll make more sense as I do it. One more thing. So if you have to stop at any point during frosting all of this, this frosting does get hard. So if you're not scooping it all into the bag right off the bat, put a wet towel over the top, like a wet tea towel until and if you're not gonna do this, like for me, I won't go through all this frosting because I'm not gonna do the roof yet, right? So once I get this base done, I'm gonna grab a Ziploc bag, just a gallon-sized Ziploc bag, and I'm gonna put this in there and seal that up and stick it in the fridge, squeeze all the air out so that it doesn't dry out and get hard, and I don't have to make another batch to do the roof tomorrow, okay? And if you're not used to filling or frosting things, just a little tip. So when you go to fill the bag, just turn the edges out like this, that way you don't get frosting all over the top. And I'll show you kind of how I do this. It might take a second, but it's easier if you know. Get all the frosting off the whisk and set this to the side. And then I'm just using a rubber spatula, but you could use a spoon. Actually, you know what? Yeah, this will work. All right, so all I'm gonna do, if you can see, push this out of the way. Okay, so all I'm gonna do is get as much of this frosting on here. I'm trying not to get it all over the outside of the bag, right? So I'm just gonna kind of drip it down the center. It does get messy sometimes, and that's fine. That's part of the fun. Let's see. You're probably not gonna fit it all in there at the beginning. And just kind of shake it to get it down to the bottom. And if you find that it's too drippy, you guys don't worry about just sticking it back in your mixer and adding a little more powdered sugar to it. That's fine. So, and then the way you close this up, and do this over the top of your bowl because you might squeeze some out the bottom. So all you're gonna do to close this up is go like that, and then I fold the corners in and then roll it from the end. And then when you're ready to do it, all you're gonna do is squeeze with this hand and just hold it with this hand and then, put a line out that way, okay? So the way we're gonna do this, pull this over. We're gonna start with one corner at a time. Let's see if I can do this so you guys can see. All right, now, ideally, you want to have somebody else helping you guys. I'm doing this by myself, but do have somebody else hold the pieces for you. That will make it much easier, okay? All right, so all I'm gonna do, I kind of know where my line's going because that's why I laid all these pieces out. So I'm gonna put a line right here. See, I don't use a ton of frosting. So I'm gonna put that on there, and I can see where the line is going for my other one. So I'm gonna go ahead, let me get back. I'm gonna go ahead and put a line there. And stick this right on top. Remember I said the other one's gonna actually go on, I'm gonna actually put this on the outside, so we shift that this way a little bit. Okay, and I think I need a little more frosting on this one. Okay, so before I pull up that other side, just turn this a little bit, I need to put the joint on the edge, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and put some up this side. Okay, and then it's gonna go on the outside there. Okay, so that's the first one. Now, one thing you can do, you guys, is you can put some kind of a box or something in here to lean it against. If you wanted, you could just do this much and let it dry if you want to be like really careful first time around. And honestly, I've done this a whole bunch of times and I still have things happen. I break them all the time. Every year I do something, so I get impatient. I try to do too much at once. Okay, so now I'm gonna come over to this side. Once it's all up, it kind of leans in on each other and kind of holds each other up. But, okay, so there's that line, and then I need to get the joint on this side. Okay, so that's gonna pretty much, you wanna try and keep it as upright as possible, you guys, so it stays. Okay. It's a little tricky on this part, I'm not gonna lie. Okay, so that one's staying up. I have to go pick up my son from school in a second, and I'm worried I'm gonna come home and it's gonna have fallen down. But that's okay, if it does, I'll just pick it up and do it again. But, okay, so now I'm gonna get the front of the house. So get that line of frosting down, and then I have two joints to do for this side. So it's gonna go right here and right here. Okay. Let's see. I think I need a little more on the bottom here. I don't think I'm far enough out. I'm gonna add a little more frosting. There we go. Okay. All right. A moment of truth here. Okay. All right. I will probably wait to do the door. There's no hurry there. I can do that anytime. So I can do that at the same time I do the roof. So at this point, just make sure there's frosting in all the little crevices. So everything's got some frosting, but you don't, again, you don't want a ton. You want enough to hold it, but if you pile too much frosting on there, it's gonna take forever to dry, and you don't want that. So I'm gonna just hold it for a second and make sure nothing's coming down. And again, make sure it's upright as much as possible or the pieces are gonna fall over. If you want, and I may go ahead and do this, you can put something on the outside of each piece to hold it in place. So it doesn't matter what, just something that's a little heavier that'll keep it from falling out. That's a really good idea. I totally recommend that. I'm gonna follow my own advice. Okay. So I'm gonna go grab some pieces, and that's, we'll pick up, I'm gonna put the rest of this frosting in a bag and use that tomorrow to do the roof. Okay guys, I let this sit all night long. It's been about 24 hours that it's been sitting. So I'm now going to put the roof on, okay? It's nice and hard, and you can see, well, you can see in here from the camera, there's a little bit of frosting. You wanna make sure this happens. You want frosting in the joints, right? But there's not a ton of it. So it was able to dry really, really well. So now we're gonna do the roof. This can be tricky. Again, you probably wanna have somebody helping you, and we'll see how it goes with just me doing it. But the way this is gonna work, work this so you can see it. Okay, so the front of the house, that's where this piece is gonna go that has the cutout, right? So it's gonna slip, it's not gonna be a perfect fit, okay? It's just not. So you're gonna fill in the gaps with frosting, but you see that one will just stay there without anything, but we are gonna glue it. The back side is what's a little more difficult because there's nothing holding this up except for the frosting. So what you might want to do if you find that your frosting maybe isn't thick enough or it's just not staying, you can see on the back here with mine, it's just gonna go like that, okay? If you need to, there's a little lip down here. If you can find something that's the right height, you can put something under there until your frosting dries, and that'll, you know, keep it doing pretty well. But okay, so here is, let's go ahead and do this. I'm gonna go ahead and do the front first, just so you can see it pretty well. Because as you can see, that doesn't need a whole lot of help. So this is how I stored my frosting, like I was talking about. The frosting that I had left over from yesterday, I just put in the bag, the pastry bag, I loaded it all up and then stuck it into just a gallon-sized Ziploc. So it's all set to go. And one thing I'm gonna show you how to do also with the frosting, hopefully we have enough left over to do this, we typically do, is how to kind of make some fun little icicles on the edge of your roof. They always end up getting broken off because my kids break them off. But if you can keep your kids from doing that, they look really cool. Okay. So I'm going to roll this up and just get the frosting on. Get all the edges. Even on the bottom where, you know, it's going to stay there pretty well. But I'm still going to put some frosting there because I just want everything to be in contact with some of the glue. Okay. All right. So we're going to go ahead and put this on. Looks pretty good. Now at this point, well, we'll wait till the end to do this. I was going to say, you're going to go back in and you can fill in, there's going to be gaps. There are gaps in mine. And you can fill those in with some frosting, but it might be even better to go ahead and wait and do that later with your royal frosting. And I'm finding that mine is not very thick today. I might need to actually add some more powdered sugar to it. Well, let's try it. Okay, so I'm gonna try this back side. So, let me flip this so you guys can see it. Okay, so I'm gonna do this back side, and this is really kind of not as thick as I would like it to be right now, you guys. So we'll see. I may need to go back and add some powdered sugar. And then I'm gonna get this top part. And you'll see I'm not super careful with the frosting, you guys, because everything I'm doing, I'm gonna go back over it with the royal frosting when we do the candy, and this part's all gonna get covered up with the other frosting and a bunch of candy, so. All right, so we're gonna stick this on. And I have a feeling that I am gonna need to put something under this if I don't wanna have to go back with thicker frosting. I'll probably need to stick something under this until it dries. Okay, so this is what I grabbed. I just found something that I could kind of wedge up underneath the roof. It was staying when I let go of it, but I think over time the roof would have kind of started to drop. So I just stuck something under that to keep it there. But this is what I want to show you, you guys. Don't worry about it being perfect. Look underneath. See that big old gap? Yeah, I will not be building any royal houses anytime soon. There's a nice big gap on both sides here. And you'll see the gaps in the front. See? That happens every year. Not a big deal. I'm just going to fill it in with frosting later. I'll probably fill it in right now a little bit, but my frosting isn't thick enough to fill that gap. So I'm going to go in. I'm not really worried about that side because it's held up by that steeple. But on this side, I'm going to go ahead and fill in these gaps just a little bit, just so I have enough glue to hold that side up. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to show you guys, I had to move my phone so you can see this better, but I'm going to show you how to do these icicles, okay? And again, My frosting might be a little too drippy to do this right now, but we're gonna try it, okay? So try and make your frosting thick enough that it is, you know, not so hard that you can't squeeze it out, but I think I should have done mine a little bit thicker. So, okay, so the way you do this, you hold it up here and get it to kind of stick on there and then slowly drag it as you're squeezing slowly. Drag it down. And I don't think it's gonna stay. That one's not gonna stay for sure. So let's try and do it a little smaller. There we go. Okay. So my frosting's too drippy to do anything really bigger than that. If it's thicker, you can actually get it to stick better. But I like going around and just making, oops, a bunch of these on all the edges. Oh, mine are dripping, but see, they're still, that one's gonna drip. All right, so let's see if I can get any more of these. And mine are not gonna stay, you guys, but if you make your frosting thicker, it will. Let's see if I can get some bitty ones. There. We're gonna do very tiny ones this year. There we go. But you get the idea. That's kind of what we're going for there. Some little ones. Okay, so now for the door, all you're gonna do, you're just gonna kind of make it like it's like a little open door so you can kind of see inside. So I'm just gonna do some frosting along the door frame on this side and then right on the cutting board and just stick my door on. That one's pretty easy. You can see it's nice and fat, so it's gonna stay great. And see if I've got enough on there. Yeah. So that's pretty much it, you guys. I will try and get on Insta stories or put a post on IGTV when we go to do the actual decorating to show you kind of some of the stuff we do. But that one's up to you. You can go up on Pinterest. You can find all kinds of fun ideas for how to decorate. We've done things like it's fun to do a roof with those like Necco wafers, if you know what those are. It makes a really good shingled roof. Or we've done it with little mini wheats, so it looks like a thatched roof. Because we take this out and shoot it, now the whole game plan has changed for my kids. They do all the decorating. I don't do it. I'm just there with the frosting and they tell me where to put it and they decorate. But their whole thing now is trying to make targets on the house that they will be fun to shoot. So they make things that stick up off the roof and all kinds of things that they can try and hit with their guns when we go out shooting. So I hope you love this. I will, in the comments or somewhere on where I'm posting this, I will have a link for you to go ahead and download the patterns so you can cut out your gingerbread, and I will have the recipe posted there too. All right, have fun. You guys, it's not super important, but if you do want to do this icicles and your frosting is not thick enough like mine wasn't, usually it's thick enough, but I don't know. I think sitting in the refrigerator for some reason this time around, it was thinned out a little bit. But you can always do it with the second round of frosting. Your royal frosting you're going to stick on with your candy, you can make the icicles out of that too. So I'll try and remember to turn it on when we're decorating and show you guys that too.